We're going to go through the basics of setting up a platform game, and I'll just make sure that my game is in advanced mode. Throughout this video, what you should do is pause the video, Alt Tab, or use your mouse to go back to the Game Maker game, make the changes as I've specified or outlined, and then come back and restart the video so that you're following along as we go through the video carefully. The first thing I'm going to do is create some sprites. I'm going to create a character sprite. I'll call this character right. So I've got two sprites for the character. I'll load my sprite up first. I've got my character right there. Okay. And it's transparent, which means that green area will not show when the character, if I go edit sprite, you can see that the character has just got the character. The bottom left pixel is the same color as the background, and that's the part that's ignored by Game Maker. I'll go OK, and I'll create one more sprite. This will be character right, SPR character right. I'll load my sprite again. Sorry, this is one character left. I better rename that. Character left. Go OK. And the last one I'm going to do is create the sprite called the block or the platform. And I'll load that sprite up. There's a block horizontal, that's the one I'm after. Go OK. Now notice that it's 16 by 8. That's important when it comes to the room. It makes it easier to put the parts in. And I'm going to turn off the transparent on this sprite so that I can see it, because the bottom left pixel is black, and if I left the transparent on, the sprite would become invisible. So pause your video now and go and install your sprites, set them all up, and then come back. Now I'm going to set the objects. I'll create an object. The first object I'm going to create is the object block. And give it the sprite block. And I'm going to make sure that it's checked as solid. In Game Maker, when you collide with an object that's solid, you can have different behaviors versus other objects. But in this case, we want the object to be solid. If you don't make it solid, your sprite will simply fall off the screen when it tries to collide with a solid object. And then go OK. The next part is my next object I'm going to create is the object character. If you haven't made the object block, pause the video, go and make your object block, and then come back. Now the object character, it will have I'm going to start it off with the sprite right. It's not solid. But the first event we're going to give the character, you can give it a create event that plays a sound or does something to it, but the first event we're going to do is we're going to set the code for the character's behaviors in the game with gravity and regarding the jumping. Because as a platform game, you want the character to be able to jump. We're going to use the up keys, the down key, the up keys, the left and the right keys. We don't need the down key because we're going to use gravity. But we're going to use a step event at this first point because we're going to give it some code behind the character. So click on step event and choose the step event. I'm going to put some comments into the step event so that you can just see a bit of what's happening. Under the control, which I think is the fourth tab down, there's a comment tab. We're going to drag that in, and the comment will be to check whether in the air, and go OK. So whilst we're on the same tab, we're going to grab hold of this one here, and it says check if a position is empty or free. And we're going to say that if the position Y position, the position above it, is free, in other words there's no solid objects relative to where I am, so it's important to be relative to where the object is. Okay, if a position is free, I'm going to set the gravity to 270, which is down in GameMaker, and I'll give it a gravity of 0.7 and go OK. I'll go back to my control, which is the fourth tab down, and we're going to choose else, and we'll go back to the first tab. Else, we're going to set the gravity if 270, and we're going to set the gravity to 0, which means that if it is not free, set the gravity to 0. So for free, position's free, set the gravity, in other words, if there's nothing underneath the character, set gravity to 0.7. If there is something underneath the character, set the gravity to 0. I'm going to go back to my fourth tab now, just quickly put in a comment, and this is to limit the vertical speed. If we don't limit the vertical speed, the character will get faster and faster. And we're going to limit the vertical speed to 12, but before we do that we need to say, well, we need to let it accelerate to 12. So I'm going to use a variable in the same section, and we're going to call this variable is called vSpeed. It's a predefined value within GameMaker called vSpeed, which is vertical speed. We're going to say 12, and we're going to say if it's larger than 12, okay, then set the variable speed vSpeed to 12 and go OK. At this point you probably need to go back and do these steps just to make sure you've got all of those, and if you hover over them you'll see the following code. If a position is relative position 0, 1 is collision free for a solid objects, set the gravity to 0.7 in the direction 270, otherwise set the gravity to 0, in other words if there's something underneath you, set it to 0, and if the vertical speed is larger than 12, set that to 12. In other words, don't let it get faster than 12. So that's the main actions to do with the code behind it. Now let's do the keyboard events. Keyboard events. The first one I'm going to do is the right keyboard, and we're going to do, if I go to the second tab down, because I've got two different sprites, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the sprite is the right spacing sprite, the sprite right, and go OK. So I'm saying if you hit the right key, make sure or turn the character into the right sprite. The next thing to do is to say, well, if this position is free, so I'm going to go down to the fourth tab, the control tab, and I'm going to say if the position to the right of the sprite is empty, we're going to let it jump. Now to the right is the x-axis and to the right is positive x, so I'm going to say if to the right of 4, and it will be relative to my position now. If my position to the right is free, I want you to go back to the first tab, then you're going to jump to the right relative to where you are, that 4 pixels or 4 parts of the room, 4 steps, and go OK. We're going to do the same thing for the left arrow, so let's go add a keyboard event. It's a left event. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the second tab, change the sprite to the sprite left, go OK, go down to the fourth tab. This time we're going to check to the position to the left, which is a negative X. So check 4 to the left of where you are, relative to where you are. Okay. If the position 4 to your left is free, go back to the first tab. I want you to go to jump, -4 to your left, relative to where you are, go OK. So that's taken care of the left and right keys. Now the next one we have to take care of is the up key. There's a couple of things we need to do with that. It's not a big deal, but let's do an event, and the keyboard event is the up event. Now this time we're going to say if there's a collision at a position, because it's up and we can also jump to the right. In other words, the keys using the right and left keyboards, you can move to the left or right. So we need to be a bit more of a general position. So this one we're going to go to the control, the fourth tab down, and there's this one here checking for a collision. And we're going to check for a collision underneath you. If there's nothing underneath you, relative to where you are. Okay. Then if there's nothing underneath you, go back to the first tab, and we want to set the vertical speed, which is this one here, the red one. I'm going to set the vertical speed to -10. In other words, that's going up. Positive is down, negative is up. So if there's nothing, if there is something underneath you, jump up. And that is really it for the character for the moment. Let's go. Okay, let's do one more thing, the object block. That has cancel that. One other thing with the character is the collision with a block. You add event, and it's a collision event, and this is what you do if you're near a block. If you're near a block, you're going to this tab here, which is move to contact, and the direction is whatever direction you're moving in. Now because you've got left and right arrows and as well as the up key, the character can move at different directions. We'll give it a maximum of 12, which is the maximum speed you can go. So in other words, collision with the block, maximum 12, the direction's direction. And the other thing is we're going to set the vertical speed to 0 as soon as you collide with the block. So that should be enough for the character. Let's go and create our room. So I want you to do a right click on room and create a room. Just move that out a little bit and make it a bit bigger. And I'll make this a little bit bigger here, so you can see a bit more of our room. I'm going to get the snap Y, I'm going to set that to 8 because that was the size of our blocks. If I remember correctly, when I double click on my block, you can see that's 16 by 8. Close that down. Shift key, I'm going to put a few blocks in, so I'll choose my object block. I'll just put a few in here just to start me off, and a few others there, a few there. I'll just make a couple here and there and just see how we go. I don't really know how far this character does jump, but we probably need to make some provisions for that. So just lay out a bit of a platform here. We'll see how we go. And the next thing I'm going to add is my character. I'll put my character up about here. It should actually, because it's above the platform, it should drop down to the platform. Let's test our game. And yes, the character jumps, goes to the left, goes to the right, changes directions, jumps and moves across. Yep, beautiful. Whoa, look at that. Jump. Whoa, there we go. We're off the screen. Good night, sweetheart. However, we now have the fundamentals of our game. For example, what you could do to if a character does fall through the floor like that, you can say, when you go into the character, you can say if you've got an event where it is outside the room, you can restart the game, or if it intersects the boundary, it returns to the position of the starting position. It's up to you how you manage the game and so forth. But you've got the fundamentals there, of how to create that sort of a character game, platform-driven game.